and welcome everyone to Eclectic NW Podcast. I'm your host, Jess Briggs. I hope you all are having a lovely Wednesday, as always. It has finally begun to cool down in the Pacific Northwest, which is very much appreciated because it's been way too hot, especially for me. Not a big fan of the heat, so having these cool days are really nice, and it's just great to prepare for fall, which is one of my favorite seasons. Now, in today's topic, we're going to be talking about the afterlife and about empaths and HSPs. Now, this is something that is near and dear to me because as an empath myself, I also have daughters that are HSPs, which HSP stands for highly sensitive person or people. So this is really important. It's one of the topics that I really like talking about just because there's a lot of skepticism behind talking about the afterlife and what happens after we die because there's no evidence for it. You can't measure it, and you only have all these anecdotes from people who have experienced this, such as individuals who have had near-death experiences, which is where we have most of our evidence that there is a possibility of life after death. Now, starting with the afterlife, I really want to discuss here what happens to the brain at death. So when you're in the hospital and you hear that someone has flatlined, that is saying that brain activity has completely ceased within that person, and without the brain, the body can't operate. The body can operate with machines without the brain, but without the brain, the body will die. Now, the fact that our scientific machines show that there is no brain activity upon death, and people that have experienced near-death experiences, they come back with these fantastical tales of things that they saw, experiences they had, and a lot of them have so many similarities, it's extraordinarily difficult to just completely write off these experiences as maybe a possible hallucination right before death, because a lot of the experiences have similarities such as space and time is non-existent, people experience millions of years in 1 second, and just the basic physics of our reality don't exist in these experiences. Now, the one similarity that is extremely hard to pass off as a hallucination right before death is where people have the out-of-body experience where they are outside of their body, they are seeing what happens around them, they're seeing the people, they're seeing what's going on, they can describe things they couldn't have possibly seen because they were considered to be dead. And I believe that this main similarity of people being able to see things they couldn't possibly see, and a lot of them describe when they're outside of their body seeing all of this happen, that the walls sort of peel back, and like before, space doesn't exist, so they can move anywhere, go anywhere. It's just free to do everything that physics and our reality doesn't allow us to do because our bodily form is a part of this reality. And so our bodily form has to abide by these laws, but when you are free floating and you're outside of your body, your energy or your essence is not restricted to our physical laws, which brings us into the topic of energy. Now, anyone who's taken a science class knows, based on the law of the conservation of energy, that energy is neither created nor destroyed. It is only transferred and transformed. Now, all matter emits energy and uses energy. Now, it depends on the type of energy. As humans and animals, anything that is an organic living being emits energy. It is what many spiritual cultures and religions would call our essence or our consciousness. And we can actually see this depending on what type of instrument you're using. We're learning how to actually see the auras or the energy of different people. And this aura and energy can actually be different colors based on the person and also based on the type of emotional state that person is in. Now, I know there's some people listening to this podcast that are displaying a bunch of skepticism to certain things like this, but for those of us who actually have the ability to feel the emotions of others, to be able to sense the different energy in the room and how it's shifted, like when you walk in a room and you can tell that something tense is happening between people, that is the energy that you're sensing. Some of us, such as empaths and HSPs, are really sensitive to this energy, and it actually drains us in some cases to where we have to take a rest day from being around people, because the energy from other people, it can be extremely draining, especially when you can't distinguish whether your emotions are your own or someone else's. Now that I've sort of dabbled in the topic of empath and highly sensitive people, we'll just go right into that. Now, empaths can be a lot of the types of people that call themselves mediums. They are energy sensing, individuals like that have that kind of extra sensory perception to things that the average person cannot pick up. Now, the difference between a highly sensitive person and an empath is that a highly sensitive person, which makes up about 1.4 billion people in the world, can pick up on other people's emotions. They're also extremely sensitive to their own emotions. They feel very deeply. They are often misunderstood. Some of them are introverted, but some of them are extroverted. There are many sensitive people. It's just, for highly sensitive people, we have to be aware that life strikes them differently. When they're presented with certain situations, they might take it a little harder. And when they connect with people, they connect on a deeper level. So they have to learn how to deal with their different emotions and how to operate in a world where being emotional or overly emotional or sensitive to certain things is often frowned upon, even though we've become more mindful to individuals that are more sensitive. A lot of us don't actually know how to deal with people that are highly sensitive, and I think it's really important, if you don't know what a highly sensitive person is, to educate yourselves, because if you have a child who lashes out emotionally too often, it's a little out of character for someone their age, or has difficulty expressing their emotions or refraining from emotional outbursts in certain situations, that child or that individual might be highly sensitive and not know it. So it's important to educate ourselves on highly sensitive people, especially if you're a parent and you have a child that displays these characteristics. Knowing that they're a highly sensitive person is going to help you learn how to help them deal with what they don't quite understand, because they know they're different. They know they get burnt out more easily than other children. They know they can't handle certain social situations as easily, and it's important for us to educate ourselves, if you are a highly sensitive person or a parent of a highly sensitive person, just to help them through it and to help yourselves through it. Now, when it comes to empaths, these are the mediums, these are the clairvoyant people. I'm not going to get into all the different types of empaths there are, but they are a step above a highly sensitive person. They have extrasensory perception. They can see things, feel things, experience things that the average person cannot. They are often the people that individuals who are grieving go to just to know that their loved one that has passed on is doing okay, or just to get some answers. And not all of them are actual empaths, not all of them are actual mediums. There are a lot of scam artists out there, so just be guarded when going to seek out these people. Not all of them are the same. There's a few bad apples that ruin the bunch, which is true for many people in many occupations. So in essence, empaths are the individuals we go to just to get a glimpse behind the curtain, because they have one foot in here and one foot outside of our reality. Empaths initially can see or sense the unseen. Now, earlier I said that I am an empath. Now, I am a mixture of multiple kinds of empaths, which not every empath is the same. We don't just fit into a tight little empathic box. Now for me, I'm a mixture between an intuitive, emotional, physical, and geomantic empath. Now to unpack all four of those, I am extremely intuitive to situations around me. If I meet someone for the first time, I can feel initially if they're someone that is a good person, and in good I mean someone that I would be able to trust. And oftentimes when I meet people and they feel really off, they come off as such a bubbly and nice person to most people. I can feel that something's just not quite right with that person, and it usually comes to fruition. It may be years or months down the road, but eventually that person shows their true colors as just validating what I felt in the beginning. Now, as an emotional empath, I can also feel the emotions of people around me a lot stronger, like how you can feel the difference or the shift of mood in a room. I can feel it on a whole other level, to the point where I might have to refrain from entering that room if it's too strong, because I physically cannot be in a room that is permeated by too much energy. It will physically drain me of all energy to where I can't operate. But the great thing about being an emotional empath, especially because I am studying to be a psychologist, is that I can feel how someone is feeling just sitting in a room with them and not talking. And that helps me sympathize or empathize with that person on a much deeper level, I think, which makes my job easier to talk to that person and know where they're at, and it gives me a basis to work from so that I don't make them uncomfortable. Sorry, I seem to be losing my voice today. Now, as a physical empath, this is one of my not so favorite parts of being an empath. I can feel the physical pain of the people around me if they're suffering from medical conditions. I've learned how to guard myself from this, but sometimes I don't properly guard myself, and so when I'm feeling a physical illness, I've actually gone to the doctor multiple times because I thought something was seriously physically wrong with me, only to know that I am completely healthy. It is someone in my immediate surroundings that is suffering from this medical condition that I am having symptoms of, which is it's not fun for me, and a big reason why, even though I'm interested in the medical field, I would never be able to actually be in medicine around people with severe medical issues all the time. Now, the more interesting one, a geomantic empath, I can feel the energy shifts in certain places. I can also feel the residual energy left over in abandoned places. And you can feel the energy of plants, you can feel the energy of cities, you can feel the energy of sacred places. And that's why I like going or being around places that have a lot of history, depending on the energy. If it's too much of a malicious energy, I can't be around it. But just feeling the energy of plants, I am very comfortable in nature. It's one of my favorite places to be, especially near water. But I can also feel the energy in cities. I don't like, even though I live in a city, it's not a big city, but if I go to a really big city, it can be extremely draining. It's energizing at first, but I eventually lose all my energy, and I usually take a couple days to recuperate if I've been in a big city for an extended period of time. Now, in conclusion to this, I know I talked a little bit about the afterlife, talked about highly sensitive people and empaths, and I really hope you guys learned something, because it's one of my favorite topics to actually discuss. But I'm going to leave this probably around 15 minutes, just because it's just a brief look at all of this, and I don't want to make this too long. So this is the end of this episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Please, any and all feedback is very much appreciated. I'm still a really, 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 really small podcast, and I'd really like to get more listeners in here so we can all discuss and start having guests on the show eventually, and just talk about all the various topics. And I just want to say thank you for being here and listening to this episode. I hope you really enjoyed it again. And this is Eclectic NW Media, and I am your host, Jess Briggs. You can message me on Twitter or Facebook. All of it is under @EclecticNWmedia, and I really hope to hear from you guys sometime, and I will see you soon.